Welcome back. My name is Wendy Ashley, Professor of Social Work, and I am with Ivor Weiner, Professor of Special Education and the Director of the Family Focus Resource Center. This is the second part of our three-part series. In the first video, we discussed cultural competency and cultural humility. Both are important concepts to understand and embrace when working with diverse clients, consumers, and families. Our discussion today is about understanding your own attitudes and bias.
We all agree that it's important to have an awareness of one's own cultural identity and general assumptions about that identity in society. This awareness may help you understand how the consumer views you.
The lenses through which we see others impact our behaviors and our perceptions. We are all responsible for our own judgments and biases we employ in relation to others. Each of us must confront our own attitudes, values, and bias that influence our success in communicating with others, especially people of different backgrounds and lived experiences.
It can be hard to recognize these behaviors and attitudes in ourselves, so it's important to go through a self-assessment. Together, we will discuss a few approaches to better understand your own attitudes and bias.
First, assess the limits of your knowledge about other cultures. Recognize that your knowledge of all cultural groups, including your own, outside of your own life, is limited, and commit to creating opportunities to learn more. With new consumers, take the time to learn a little more about their identities when you meet them. Ask about their cultural background and perceptions. Ask how their experiences impact their challenges and strengths. Remember that your goal isn't to learn the history of their culture. It is to learn their experiences of that culture and how it is relevant for them and the work you will do together. Keep an open mind, ask questions, and remember to keep a stance of curiosity. If you are curious, people will connect with you. Firing questions or asking people to represent the whole culture does the opposite and disconnects them from you. We need connection to effectively intervene with consumers and families.
Committing to lifelong learning is key. You cannot learn it all in one lesson or even in a video, and the culture will change over time. Be curious and create opportunities to find yourself in places where you can learn about cultural differences and create relationships in cultures other than your own. Recognize that you have an opportunity and a responsibility to evolve with the culture.
Difference can be very powerful. Those with privilege have the capacity to harm or heal based on their social location, power, and authority. Oppression exists in the form of racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, stereotypical attitudes, discriminatory, and hate-based actions. A great example of this is when consumers complain about oppression and it doesn't make sense to you. As opposed to taking a devil's advocate position and questioning what they believe and why, it may be helpful to form an alliance with them. Acknowledge that it sounds like they were wronged and ask how you can help.
Know your own family history. It's important to know where your family came from, why they immigrated to this country, and what challenges they faced in assimilating. For instance, I was born in South Africa and lived in that country until I was 17. And I lived in that country under the apartheid regime. I was a member of the very privileged class. For me, I have to confront those beliefs almost on a daily basis and realize that although I was born into a life of privilege, it does not define who I am now, and it has helped me be sensitive to my own bias. Growing up in such an extreme environment has provided me with great insight when I work with those who are from different cultures.
Know yourself and how your experiences have shaped you. Ask yourself, what is my ethnic, cultural, and racial identity? How might my identity be perceived by others?
Another important aspect is to note your own areas of discomfort. How do you feel when you encounter differences in race, color, religion, sexual orientation, language, and ethnicity? Why do you feel that way? If those are uncomfortable feelings, what can you do to change them?
Be open to these uncomfortable feelings. Acknowledge them and know that by acknowledging them, you will move to a place of new understanding. Initiate an active strategic plan to confront and manage them consistently. Remember, this is not a one-time activity. Develop strategies to counter those first impressions and connect with the real people in front of you.
I've also learned to accept ambiguity. In cross-cultural situations, there can be uncertainty, and that uncertainty can make you feel anxious. Learn to slow down, take a deep breath, gather information in smaller pieces, and respond only when you have real understanding of what the other person is saying or thinking.
One of the things that is helpful is to manage your fears and be curious. Put yourself in situations where you can learn and expand your knowledge about others and their cultural backgrounds. Go to somebody's church, attend a cultural activity, go hear music outside your comfort zone.
Lastly, be aware of the possibility that you are in a dominant group or perceived to be in that group. Look, I'm a white male, which brings with it much privilege. I'm often perceived as a person with power and racial privilege. On a daily basis, I have to make an extra effort in my thinking to realize that based on my privilege, I can be seen as biased and not always as an ally.
That was quite a bit to digest. Let's summarize some of these concepts. Be aware of your own biases, privilege, and power. Ask yourself, what impacts your lens and the way that you see people and situations? Ask yourself, where do you carry privilege and power, and how are you using it? And ask yourself, what does your privilege obscure from your thinking and understanding? Like, what are you not seeing?
Now that you have assessed your own attitudes and bias, let's cover a few ways that can help you increase your awareness. Identify 1 to 2 populations you can serve and educate yourself about their culture, values, and beliefs. Notice how your responses differ with people that are or are not of your cultural background. Bring those responses into alignment. Assess your daily interactions. Develop and maintain cultural humility. Find mentors and continue your education to develop sensitivity to the unique needs of all people. Ask questions of people you respect within your own organization and community, especially those of cultures other than your own. Mindfully develop those relationships.
A few final thoughts about cultural awareness. Use your power to be an ally. When you hear inappropriate references to people who are culturally different, speak against those references. Clearly state why a culturally insensitive joke or slur is wrong. Be the facilitator of change. Use your voice and power to support others who may not be heard the same way. Each of us can make a difference in our own culture and in the greater community. That difference begins with an honest look at ourselves and a desire to address our own bias. A self-assessment can serve as a catalyst for change, as questions help individuals think critically about the impact their beliefs and behavior has on people from culturally different groups. We hope you will take the time to put these principles into practice.
Thank you for taking the time to view this video. You have just watched the second video in the Cultural Competency series. Next up, we discuss strategies to be culturally competent.